In the year 2000, a professor handed me $10,000 and told me to learn how to invest. Sadly, it was only fake money, part of a stock market game in one of my classes, the whole class competing against each other. I finished 7th out of 17 because I couldn't be bothered with it. But that same year, I had real savings of my own, money from student jobs in our local currency worth around 10,000 euros. And instead of investing a single cent, I bought a used BMW. Today, I'll show you what that decision and the 10 years that followed actually cost me. Not to beat myself up, but so that you don't make the same mistake I did. One honest note, because I'm stickler for this. The euro didn't exist as notes and coins until 2002. So back then, this was local currency savings. I'm converting everything to euros just to keep the numbers comparable. Now, a quick word on who's telling you this, because it makes the mistake sting even more, not less. I've spent 23 years in finance, 16 of them on the board of a development bank, sitting on the credit board and weighing thousands of financial decisions. I understood compounding on paper better than almost anyone. And I still let the decade slip away. If someone who does this for a living can get it wrong, you can forgive yourself for it too, and then fix it. In my previous video, we looked at which fund to pick, S&P 500 or MSCI World. This is the thing that matters more than any of that, not which fund, when you start. I was 20, international economics class. We were covering how companies raise money, how stock markets work. And the university had this software, a trading game. Each of us got a fake $10,000 to buy and sell real stocks over the whole semester. We were supposed to read the reports, to track the markets, analyze the companies, adjust our portfolios. Whoever had the most money by the deadline got extra credit. I did it barely. I didn't put the hours in, didn't really care. 7th out of 17. A shrug. But here is the part that still stinks. The fake money was one thing. I also had savings of my own. Years of student job money in our local currency worth around 10,000 euros. And with a little help from my parents, I spent it on a 10-year-old BMW. A car that lost value the moment I drove it. The professor was practically handing me the lesson, and I drove off in the opposite direction. Now, why? Because of where and how I grew up. In Eastern Europe, there simply was no culture of stock investing, because there was no stock market. Companies were state-owned, and central planning, not markets, decided what got built and where. Then, around 1990, came what we call the transformation, the shift from the planned communist system to a free market economy. Almost overnight, people had to manage their own money, and the one thing that they trusted was real estate, a solid brick you could stand on. Stocks were met with suspicion. What if someone runs away with the money? What if it's a scam? What if the CEO is a crook? That whole story, real estate versus stocks, and why the mistrust runs so deep, deserves its own video. And I'll make it. On top of that, I was just starting my career in a lower paid jobs with very little spare income. And everyone around me was buying property. So I did the sensible thing. I took out a housing loan and bought an apartment first, which left even less spare money for investing for quite some time. What changed was knowledge. As my career grew, as my financial education grew, from school, from books, from online, yes, even from YouTube, I slowly understood what ETFs and long-term investing actually are. And I realized my mistake. So around 2010, 10 years late, I finally started. That's really why this channel exists, not to show off, but so you can learn from my mistakes instead of repeating them. All of it backed by historical data, not opinion. Let's start with that BMW money. worth around 10,000 euros. If I'd put it into this exact S&P 500 fund when I finally woke up in 2010 and just left it alone, today it would be worth about 91,000 euros. And you don't have to take my word for it. That's the fund's real published return in euros, and I've linked the source below. But the real cost wasn't that one lump. It was the 10 years of investing I skipped. Let me show you. This next part is an illustration. The fund didn't even exist back in 2000, so I'm using the S&P 500's own returns in euros. Picture 10,000 euros to start, plus 100 euros a month. Start that in 2000, and by today you'd have around 222,000 euros. Start the very same habit 10 years later, in 2010, and you'd have around 159,000. That 10-year delay, the same 100 euros a month just started later, cost me roughly 63,000 euros. And here's what stings. Starting earlier, I'd have put in only 12,000 euros more, but ended 63,000 richer. The rest, over 50,000, is pure compounding. Time doing the work. And that's on just 100 euros a month. Triple it to 300 a month, and the cost of waiting a decade jumps past €250,000 euros. So here is what I'd tell that 20-year-old in the BMW. You do not need to pick the perfect fund. You do not need to understand everything first. You do not need to wait for the right time. There isn't one. The best day to start was 20 years ago. The second best is today. In fact, this was one of the 5 things I said I wished I'd known at 25 back in my first video. Now you heard the full price I paid for ignoring it. So start small and start automatically. Set up one transfer the day after payday, so the money is invested before you can talk yourself out of it. No willpower required, no decision to agonize over each month. You don't have to be smart or lucky or perfectly timed. You just have to be consistent and patient enough to let the decades do the compounding. Because the most expensive investment isn't the bad one, it's the one you keep putting off. I did eventually learn. I came to understand how financial markets really work, how companies raise money to fund their innovations, their growth, their new products, how they reward the shareholders who back them, and how an ETF lets an ordinary person own a slice of that whole engine. Understanding the process is exactly what let me start benefiting from it, instead of standing on the sidelines. So, I invest steadily now, and I even opened a fund for my kids, so they get the head start I didn't. That one is whole video of its own too. As always, I'm not a financial advisor. This isn't financial advice, it's education. The S&P here is an example, not a recommendation. And always remember, do your own research. If this saved you even a fraction of what my mistake cost me, a quick like helps it reach more people who need it. Next up, how those same small monthly amounts can grow into a fortune, the real power of compounding. Subscribe so you can catch it, and the full series is in the playlist. I'm Ivan, this is the Banker's Notes.